Hey everybody, I'm Gary Lucas, and this is part one of my tribute to the great Captain Beefheart, Don Van Vliet, and the fantastic Magic Band, of which there were many editions. I happen to be a member in the last edition on the last two Beefheart albums. The special occasion that warranted this tribute is the fact that today is the 51st anniversary of the release of the amazing Trout Mask Replica double CD, a sprawling set that makes many, many best of 50 best albums of all time lists routinely. And it actually is in the Smithsonian Institute Registry of Historic Recordings as of a couple of years ago. There's been so much ink spilled about this record that actually not that many people have actually sat and listened to it. And I know I was bewildered, to say the least. My experience was I had become a Beefheart fan. Really, the first time I ever heard about him was walking while I was still in high school in 1968 up in Marshall Street area of Syracuse, New York, where I grew up. And that's the college area that was a hangout zone for disaffected people, bohemians, peaceniks, potheads, all persuasions of deviants. And I was spotted by a kid. I spotted this kid also. He had the longest hair of anybody I had ever seen in the world at that time, down to beyond his shoulders. And he saw I was carrying an album by The Move, a great English band that I love very much. And he was carrying a guitar case, and we started talking. It turned out he was a DJ in Syracuse. I said, "What's your name?" He said, "Fred Perry." And he had a guitar case, an acoustic guitar case, and on it, in red magic marker, was written, "Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band." And I said, "Who's that?" And he said, "Oh, that's a band my brother produced out in L.A. recently." So we went off and did what we used to do in those days. And in the middle of our stoned reverie, I put two and two together, and I said, "Wait a second, is your brother Richard Perry?" And he said, "Yeah." And Richard Perry I knew from producing Tiny Tim's first album. So it was Fred Perry I owe the honor of first initiating me into the world of Captain Beefheart. And I subsequently purchased an album which was a cutout at the time, meaning it hadn't had much of a commercial life before it was knocked down to $1.98 at the Record Runner in Syracuse. And that was the second Beefheart album, Strictly Personal, which I bought. It wasn't for a while until I heard Safe as Milk, the first album. But before I launch into the story anymore, I'll play a little guitar here for you. This is the first cut on the first Beefheart album, Safe as Milk, and it's a crazy little thing that'll linger in your hearts forever, and it's called Sure Enough and Yes I Do. Sure Enough and Yes I Do, which was co-written with Herb Berman, who was an early lyricist working with Don. Music based on a fairly traditional blues riff that was popularized as Rollin' and Tumblin' by Muddy Waters, as well as many other blues artists, but put to a very slant and different groove, courtesy of great percussion by John French. And John French was in the Magic Band and contributed really heavily to it, longer than any single other member, through many editions. And he has written a voluminous, very detailed book about all phases of Beefheart history through the eyes of magic, which is definitely worth checking out if you're at all interested in this. And also the great Bill Harkleroad, Zoodhorn Rollo, who figured in on Trout Mask and this mid-period Beefheart period, also has written a book, which is also a great read. And I have to really also then mention Mike Barnes, who is an old friend of mine, and Mike wrote a pretty definitive biography just called Captain Beefheart, which came out some years ago in the UK, and there was a US edition. I hooked him up. So there is one also in English. Well, they're both in English. There's one also American edition, which has some photos from my archive. Anyway, check that one out, because it's really a good synthesis of pretty much everything that had been uncovered about the world of Captain Beefheart, Don Van Vliet, at the time. And so I'll just now jump a little bit into the history of the leader, Captain Beefheart, and this tribute wants to definitely give him the major props here. Now, Don Glenn Van Vliet, which was his birth name, was born on January 15th, 1941. January 15th, a red letter date, also the birth date of Martin Luther King. And Don grew up in a middle-class suburb of California, Glendale, California, for his first few years, and exhibited tremendous artistic tendencies as a sculptor, and actually was discovered sculpting at the Griffith Park Zoo by a Portuguese sculptor of note named Agostinho Rodrigues. And he was so taken with Don's abilities to fashion little animals and fish replicas out of clay that he featured him on his educational TV show on the UHF band. If you're as old as I am, you will remember UHF TV, which you had to tune in very gingerly with a knob on most American TV sets to get it. It was the ultra-high frequency channel, not network TV, non-commercial TV. So Don did that for a while, and then he actually entered and won a Knudson's Dairy Scholarship to study art in Europe. And legend has it, well, Don told it this way, that his father, Glenn, really objected to that and made a statement on the order of all artists are queers. So they forbid him to go to Europe on the scholarship. And then this coincided with a move to Lancaster, California, which is in the high Mojave Desert area of California, about an hour and a half drive from Los Angeles, where Don spent the next formative years of his life, around the same time befriending a very young Frank Zappa, who was also living in Lancaster, as was my pal Denny Wally, who had the distinction of playing guitar with both Frank and Don at various times. And Don's upbringing, again, the stories are a little bit on the tall tale side. Don claimed that he never went to school, but then one day showed me the high school where he attended and recalled a time that he had barricaded the front entrance to the high school with a car, blocking the exit or the ingress and the egress before the car was removed. He was up to a lot of pranks in those days, apparently, and I actually was with him once in the desert. This is a true story, with Ken Schreiber, who worked very hard on producing, and she got props as actual director of the Ice Cream for Crow video, which we shot around Lancaster. And we were at a diner in the middle of nowhere off of the highway, and you say Don lived in the desert. It's scrubland with Joshua trees, cacti everywhere. It's not exactly the Sahara Desert, though, I have to tell you. It's very much a settled area, albeit not that thickly populated anyway, with malls and, all modern conveniences. So we were there, having coffee about 1 PM one day. And a guy walked in who looked like a trucker, and he spotted Don, and he said, "Hey, man, it's Don Vliet." And Don looked up sharply at him and said, "You mean Don Van Vliet?" Because Don's original family name was Van Vliet. His dad changed it, and then Don had it restored legally as Van Vliet because he thought it was a good name and sounded more artistic, I suppose. So the guy said, "Yeah, Don Vliet." He just ignored the Van Vliet part of it. "We wouldn't let you in the car club, remember?" He just kind of laughing, so it was obviously a character out of Don's high school past. And Don looked up and said, "So what do you want to talk about, man? Quantum math?" Yeah, that was the end of that conversation, but Don had a way with words. In visiting him down there in Lancaster, I just will make a little digression. There's some horrible news that's come over the wire about a possible lynching of a black youth in Palmdale, which is right down the road from Lancaster here. That's the Antelope Valley section of this area. It's called Antelope Valley. And it's near a place called Quartz Hill. It's very colorful names there. I hope it's not true. It's being investigated. And there was another occasion the week before where a young black person was found hanging in Victorville, which is about 50 miles from Palmdale. So, again, I hope that this isn't true, but let's just say that area, it's the only time I ever encountered in the recent past overt anti-Semitism. Walking into a bar with Don one day, and a cowboy, looked at me and said, "Is that what you call a Jew-fro?" Well, I had more hair back then, and it was sticking out. Anyway, Don pushed this guy over a table in retaliation, so it's a bit of a rough neighborhood, but a very good place to soak up things like the blues. And Don showed a tremendous aptitude for both avant-garde music, particularly jazz of Ornette Coleman and John Coltrane. He had a dollar bill signed by Coltrane that he told me he got when visiting Coltrane during a performance in L.A., accompanied by Frank Zappa. They went to pay tribute. So his music really became an amalgam of free jazz. Cecil Taylor was another influence, and the blues. All the country blues artists, and then especially electric blues. And I also met a character from his past who told me Don could do at one point the most fantastic impressions of Son House, Howlin' Wolf, Jimmy Reed, one after another. He had an uncanny ability, and he claimed a 5.5 octave voice. A voice that he said could go from the lowest note on the piano to the highest note. But when asked to do this by David Letterman, Don said, "Well, I need a bongo playing off in the background." Anyway, he had an incredible voice, and he also was a tremendous poet. None of the stuff I'm saying, which may explode some myths here, is meant to denigrate the guy in any way, because in my book, Don is the greatest, most artistic person I've ever met in any area of music and art and literature. And today is also Bloomsday. This is the one day that the entire book of Ulysses by James Joyce takes place, on June 16, 1904, in Dublin. And I've often compared some of Don's verbal dexterity, both spoken and in the written page as lyrics and declaimed in his songs, as being Joycean. He had an amazing ability for wordplay, And talking with him was like playing three-dimensional chess with someone, because his mind went every which way. Sun Zoom Spark, he was Avant Tangent, which is another name he came with for his music. I'm going to get more into the music, though, because this is the first part of what I think will be a three-parter. So tune in again on Thursday and Saturday this week for part 2 and 3, because there's so much to talk about and play for you guys. I'm just scratching the surface. But now, I want to pay a little visit here to a little virtual tour I'm going to give you of some Beefheart artifacts. Okay, I got some I pulled up. It being the 51st anniversary of Trout Mask Replica, I thought I would show you. This is, it's very sunny up here, but maybe you can see it, albeit backwards. This is a signed by Don cover of the original copy of Trout Mask, which I purchased in Syracuse after my experience with Strictly Personal, which I thought was a little bit hard to grasp at that time. I bought this instantly because of the great cover by Cal Schenkel, who worked a lot with Frank Zappa. This is Don with actually the head of a carp, which he said stank a lot, holding it in front of his face here. And Don inscribed it, Gary Lucas, Love Over Gold, Don Van Vliet, 72, Boston tour. That's about the time I first met Don. I interviewed him. At that point, I was the music director of Yale University's radio station, WYBC. And everyone knew what a Beefheart fan I was. I'd seen him play in New York 6 months or so before he came up to Yale to play. And I was a big proselytizer, telling everybody, and I had seen a lot of great music live at that point in my life, including the Stones with Brian Jones, October 30th, 65 at the War Memorial in Syracuse, and some of the more contemporary bands like the Mahavishnu Orchestra with John McLaughlin. These were mind blowers. I saw the Byrds with both Clarence White and Roger McGuinn trading licks. Janis Joplin with Big Brother, and then with the Full Tilt Boogie Band. So I'd seen some great music, but nothing prepared me for the Beefheart onslaught. And I was hooked after seeing the show at a little club called Ungano's down, actually up on the Upper West Side, no longer exists. Don did 3 nights there and was visited during his engagement by people checking him out, including Mingus and Art Blakey, Roland Kirk, who was a huge fan of Don's. And it changed my life. I went down there with my friend Robert Melvin Rubin, Bob Rubin, and Steve Hendel, who are 2 of my oldest and dearest friends who I was at Yale with. And I had my mind blown by the spectacle of the show with Don and the then Magic Band, which was John French, and Art Tripp, the great Artie Tripp, on drums and percussion instruments, including marimba. At that point, the monikers Don gave to his bandmates are famously part of the lore of it, although I was always just Gary Lucas, although once Gary Mantis Lucas on stage in the UK referred to me. But so here was Drumbo, John French, and Art Tripp, who was known as Ed Marimba, duking it out on the double percussion. Bill Harkleroad, a.k.a. Zoodhorn Rollo, killing it on guitar, along with Elliot Ingber, Wingadeel Fingerling, an amazing blues-based psychedelic guitarist who was in the band for a short time and made some of the dates of this tour. Mark Boston, Rockhead Morton, anchoring the whole thing down with his amazing bass style, with thick chords on the bass and finger picks and doing contrapuntal lines. And it was just a stunning display of virtuosity, but done in the center of this menagerie, I guess you could say. No disrespect there, but they look like mythological creatures, all of them. Just Three Ring Circus of Dr. Lowe, if you know that film with Tony Randall, one of my favorite films. So let's go over. I'll show you something else I pulled out for the occasion, and this was buried in my archive, but let's see how it looks or how it registers. I don't know if the glare on the I think I'll bring the camera over here. We'll see it not in direct sunlight, okay? But it's a poster from a Dutch tour. I did a European tour with the guys when Doc at the Radar Station came out. And so let's move over and look at this here. And I hope you can see it better. Let's see what it looks like, if you can see it here. See, I can't see what you're seeing, but I assume that you can see it. It's a poster that was done for a show in Rotterdam, which is a diptych. The top shows a bunch of turkeys being penned up, and the bottom part shows, what does it show? Industrial slaughter of the turkeys. And then there's Reagan down here. Don used to hate Reagan because this concert was on election eve in 1980 when Reagan was elected president. So it was held at an aircraft hangar, disused in Rotterdam. It was really cold. And I don't know, I had to hug myself to keep warm. They had some kind of weird non-heating system going on in there. But in any case, Don and I went off after the concert, and I'll tell a little tale. We were like smoking pot. That's what you do in Holland, or I used to anyway. I'm off the stuff for about a dozen years now and don't regret it. But at that point, Don was known to take a hit once in a while, so we were puffing away because it's legal in Holland, except you're supposed to be doing it in coffee shops, right? So there was a knock on the door while we were like just kibitzing and smoking. I opened the door and there's a plainclothes guy with another guy standing there, and he goes, "Dutch police, do you have any drugs in there?" So Don jumps in front of me and goes, "Oh man!" Don like deflected from me. I went and like flushed the stash down the toilet, and Don went, "Did you hear about Reagan? I can't believe it, man. It's terrible." And so one of the cops like went like this and said, "Yes, it's a terrible tragedy." And Don just sort of like, covered and got their attention while I disposed of any. And the other guy like sniffed around like, I wonder if there's anything here. And then they left, thank God. But Don said, "Can you imagine the headline of the newspaper tomorrow? Ronald Reagan elected, Captain Beefheart busted." Well, anyway, we had some close scrapes. We had a lot of fun. But I'll get back to and play a little music for you. Now, this is from Trout Mask. You see, I have so many stories, and I want to pay appreciation. Trout Mask features John French on percussion, who tragically was left off the credits. He had a falling out with Don, and his name doesn't even appear on the record, which sucks. And what can I say? So here, I'm trying to make restitution here for John. And Jeff Cotton, who is known as Antennae Jimmy Siemens, who is my Facebook friend who has resurfaced recently, is playing guitar. And when I was in the Magic Band, I got the privilege of playing most of Jeff Cotton's parts, I was told. And Denny Wally was playing Zoodhorn's parts. So it's like Jeff Cotton, Bill Harkleroad on guitars, and Mark Boston on bass, and a groundbreaking album. So this is a little bit of a guitar, actually an amalgam of guitar parts from a song called Sugar and Spikes on that. Sugar and Spikes, some great lyrics. Sugar and Spikes and everything nice and crazy. That's what Little World's lady. I recorded a version of this with the fabulous Nona Hendricks on a project called The World of Captain Beefheart. This project was kind of initiated by my friend Coda Kloot, the Beefheart Zappa go-to guy of Holland, and he had symphonic Beefheart at the Paradiso. He organized this concert. I was a special guest. We got Nona in to sing, and Jolene Grunberg, and some other great Dutch singers, and the fantastic 65-piece Metropole Orchestra, who are the premier jazz fusion orchestra of the Netherlands. And then later on, because it was too unwieldy to cart an orchestra around, we decided to do a small group version of this with Jesse Krakow on bass from Fast and Bulbous. Actually, these three guys were all in Fast and Bulbous, I think. Dickie Dworkin on drums, Jordan Shapiro on keyboards, and we hope to do a concert when they resume concerts here for Bang on a Can, who are organizing a festival which sadly got canceled this spring. Anyway, how are we doing for time? Well, we're running out of time, but I have so much more to say and tell you about. Anyway, Trout Mask Replica, seek it out. I know that the great writer Jerzy Kosinski, who was a friend of Polanski's, great Polish writer who lived in New York for a while, who wrote The Painted Bird and Steps and Being There, very black humorous writer. He was teaching up at Yale, and we showed him the lyric sheet to Trout Mask because the original Trout Mask came with a lyric sheet. And he quickly scanned it and then looked up and said, "This man is a very sophisticated lyricist." I could go on, but I'll save it till next time, and I'll show you some more art. Let's see, what else do I have? Anything? Oh, yeah. Okay, this thing, if you can see it, is a painting that Don gave me as a gift that he said he painted during the making of Trout Mask Replica. I said, "What is it?" He said, "It's a flying saucer," naturally. Okay, so that's a flying saucer. Acrylic paint on paper. And I treasure these things. People are always asking me if I'm going to sell them. I did in the past, but I'll be damned if I'll do it now. And anyway, I love to talk about Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band, and I love to play for you guys here. So we'll resume my little Captain Beefheart Symposium this Thursday. Please tune in at 3 o'clock. Until that time, be safe. I told you about masks. And the word is getting out now because the spikes are starting to happen all over the country. Please wear a mask if you go outside. Be courteous. I mean, even if you think you're not going to get it, you could get it, and you could be carrying this. So just do everybody a favor. Okay, enough said. Love you guys. See you soon.